It's the Mike Francesa podcast on the Bet Rivers Network.
Mike Francesa podcast on the Bet Rivers Network and across the country. And we welcome in one of the true legends of the sport in Joe Namath. Joe, welcome. How are you?
Well, Mike, I'm healthy. The family's healthy, so we can't ask much more than that. And the Jets, they're in the hunt.
Yeah, finally, some heartbeat and some life from them. But before I get to that, because as someone, and I go back a long time in the NFL, I've always said this: Johnny Unitas made it America's game, and Joe Namath made it America's passion. You really were someone who transcended sport and helped the enormous explosion of the NFL, and I frankly don't even think you've been given enough credit for it.
Well, you know what? It's still a wee game. Life's a wee game, and I was a part of a couple of areas in the sport of football. Man, going back to Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania, my high school coach, a college coach, Paul Bear Bryant, and we had the team with the Jets. We did win one time that World Championship, and it's so competitive and tough in the big leagues, man. But I certainly was, and to this day, thankful that I was a member of the Jets community and playing in the Big Apple, boy.
Joe, you're someone who has always talked the game very fluently. You've stayed up on the game. You know what's going on always when anyone talks to you about the game. Any regret that you didn't go into ownership or go into management or go into coaching in the NFL?
Mike, at this stage in my life, when I look back, there's a lot of things, a lot of do-overs I do, and I wish I would have done. We had, there was a great general manager named Don Klosterman,
yep.
And with the Rams and the Colts and, various teams. And I got a kick out of what he said one day. Football players, sports players, a lot of people use would have, could have, and should have. And Klosterman added, and yeah buts. You got to eliminate would have, could have, should have, and yeah buts. Yeah, there are a lot of things when I look back I wish I had done. I give it some thought, but I'm thankful to God, and every day we're healthy. And I've lived a life that I didn't plan a lot of it. It evolved, and I'm just a thankful dude, man, that has had a lot of help along the way.
Well, you've stayed in front of America for forever. You've always been there. They still see you doing commercials. They've always seen you doing commercials. Before that, doing movies, doing TV shows. You've been there the whole time. Joe Namath's never gone away.
Mike, thinking about things years ago and still to this day, I'm a believer that for us, most everything starts at home. If you're lucky enough to come from a home that teaches respect and love for others and to work with people the way you want people to work with your family or your friends, you got a shot at getting along. And that's one thing that I learned at home that I always respected, and how to treat other people, whether I run into somebody today in the grocery store, at a gas station, wherever. It starts out with respect and listening and trying to make things good for that day or that experience. So I've been lucky, and I'm thankful for that.
We're talking with the legendary Joe Namath. Joe, what do you see when you see the modern NFL quarterback? Everyone wanted a Joe Namath. Everyone wanted a guy who could throw like you or a Dan Marino, and they wanted that great pocket passer. Now they look for these guys to be able to run, and now they run brazenly. I'm amazed at how much these quarterbacks now, they call their number. They run running plays for the quarterbacks. It's amazing what they're doing with these quarterbacks now.
Yes, and especially up there at Buffalo with what that guy does when he decides to run too. Ideally, and I say ideally, you don't need your quarterback running if things are going well, But ideally, if you can get out of there, going back to Francis Tarkington or Roger the Dodger Staubach and old Joe Namath himself at Alabama before knee injuries, man, yeah, you take it upfield. And these guys today, across the board of sports, all sports, they're stronger, they're bigger, they're faster, they have the best teaching going on. Mike, we had Eubank and 4 coaches.
Yep, now they have 22.
Nick Saban left Miami to come to Alabama, he had 28 assistants. You know, we had 2 trainers in our locker room, man, all the years. You can't count the number of trainers and help that the players are getting these days. Again, the players are marvelous to watch in all sports, and football is still a contact sport. And, boy, the body just wasn't designed or didn't evolve into an animal that can take every lick that it gets and every fall, hitting the ground awkwardly, tearing a shoulder up, you know, getting that head concussion and all. It's awful tough sport.
It is, especially on the court.
Hey,
it's hard for these guys to make it through a season. And, you know, it's interesting because you mentioned, and you do a lot, Paul Bear Bryant, the legendary coach at Alabama, who you played for. I, as a kid, interviewed him once, and he scared the heck out of me when he came in the room because he was intimidating as heck. And I was a young kid, and I had just gone to work, you know, on the national level and just out of college. And I got to interview him once, and it was hard to understand because he grumbled a lot. But he mentioned the 2 greatest athletes he ever coached were you and Ozzie Newsome.
I really appreciated Coach Bryant. I loved him, and he just took care of his players. And when he said that, you know, well, again, that's darn flattering. And as a youngster, as a collegiate, before the knees torn ligaments and all, I could move around pretty good. And Mike, I had fun. Basketball, I could dunk the damn basketball with 2 hands. Boy,
and you were a good baseball player too, right?
And I could go up underneath, you know. I loved baseball, so I could play sports. I do wish to this day I'd have been a better student, and planning the future better when I was in school, the earlier school, whatever. And my parents were workers, you know. We all, myself included, worked every summer. I worked, and my parents were workers. So we didn't get the kind of scholastic guidance that you'd think we can offer to kids today. So I'm just happy the way life's turned out, especially with our health. And I say our health, my family's health, and our respect with the spirituality, buddy.
Well, you've also, you know, you're in really good shape. I mean, you've kept yourself in very, very good shape. You haven't aged much. You really haven't. For someone who had so many knee surgeries and had so many issues when you were a young player, I mean, you're in pretty good shape now. You know, I was always listening to what I was told to do, asked to do by coaches. I was getting coaching a good part of my life, and I talked with our orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Jim Nicholas, at the time, who was a dear friend, and I was getting close to stopping to play football, and I asked Dr. Nicholas, well, what do you think? Well, what can I do? And he gave me a simple formula that I do to this day. And first he looked at me, Mike. He said, well, you're going to try and make the Olympics. I said, no, sir, I'm not going to try to make the Olympics. He said, well, this is all you got to do. He said, you get your heart rate above normal and hold it there over 20 minutes, at least 4 days a week. Cardiovascularly, that's going to be good for you. And I got in the habit of swimming. I got in the habit of exercising in ways that my knees don't really come into play. Any jarring on the body
irritates the joints, whether it's your neck, your back, your knees, your ankles. So I still, to this day, get at least 4 days in a week taking care of myself with some humble or exercise. And another thing is, a lady that was 104 years old told me, I asked her, well, what do you attribute this to? And she just chuckled a bit and she said, oh, Joey, you are what you eat.
That's a good. That's very good advice.
I pay attention to what I've been eating for a long time, man, and I have a desire for simple things, vegetables and certainly fish and all. And but you are what you eat. And Mary Poppins, you know that movie, Mary Poppins?
Sure.
She came out with a line, Mike, that has stayed with me, and I tell my children and whatever, when she said, enough is as good as a feast. When she was eating, she said that to one of those children, enough is as good as a feast. A lot of people don't know when they've had enough. They're in such a habit of eating everything. Using the old excuse, I have a 93-year-old friend who still has to eat everything that's in front of him because when he was growing up, he says, my parents made me eat everything at the table. The Depression, we didn't waste any food. Well, I like Mary Poppins, what she had to say. Try to realize, what is enough? Why do you go beyond the enough? And enough is as good as a feast, health-wise. So as far as maintaining good health, weight, those kind of things, it's what you eat and how much you eat and maintaining some humble exercise.
We're talking with the legendary Joe Namath. Joe, this Jet team, it's vastly improved. They got players. They got players on both sides of the ball. They got a good defense, and they've had to work around the quarterback position. Tell me, and the fans would like to hear what you think. Tell me what you think of Wilson, what you think of White, and what you've seen from these quarterbacks.
Before we do that, I want to tell you what I think of the team. I love what Salah's done, and defensive coordinator as well. These guys are out there playing with the reckless abandon, it seems, man.
They got a real good defense.
Running around and doing things. Even last week's game, they were in the damn hunt. They beat themselves.
Yep.
One of the things we mentioned, we talked about Coach Bryant at Alabama. The first thing he told us in our first freshman meeting is he going to teach us how to keep from beating yourselves. I'm going to teach y'all how to keep from beating yourselves. Well, when you look at that Minnesota game last time, we made so many errors, silly errors. The players know that. The coaches know that when they look at those tapes of the game and even during the game. They didn't play as good a game as they could have played. And they were right in it there past regulation, So I love what I'm seeing with the defense. And offensively, it was time to make the change to White. And Salah, pulled the trigger there and decided that's what we got to do. And right now, I'm looking at a better passer by far than what I saw earlier in the year. And I'm watching his head go from here, 1, 2, 3, 4. He knows where his secondary, third, fourth receivers are almost instantly. I like the way he's shopping around when the first guy doesn't appear to be open or his first choice. So with the offense picking it up, and of course, lady luck with the injuries, we lost some players, but every team does. It's a cruel game. It's a tough game. But I really like what I've seen, the change that's taken place in just 2 short years. I mean, this is Salah's only been there. That staff's only been there 2 years. So we're heading in the right direction.
No question. They have a really good defense now. Really, really good. What do you see anything that you like? What do you see with Wilson right now?
He needs more work, more time. Even watching early on and watching him play the last couple of years, and I know he knows this too. He needs to improve his passing accuracy. That's one of the things, and we can all get a little sharper and a little bit better with the right kind of focus and training. His footwork, he's got quick feet and he's able to move around well, but I can't get between his ears. I don't know him. I haven't visited with him. What's going on between the ears, whether it's on and off the field, means a whole heck of a lot. So, Zach, I hope he's around for a long time, but I got a feeling that he lost the job, and justifiably he lost the job, because White, I think, is, from what I've seen, displaying better play at that position.
I don't think any question. Have you watched Daniel Jones enough to make a decision on what about him?
Yeah, I like him. The people say, how can you be a Giants fan? Well, I go way back to a guy from Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania, playing for the Giants, and Joe Walton. I was a Giants fan then, and over the years, having so many friends in New York, I know they're split. And I like the Yankees, too, and the Mets, you see. But, yeah, I like Jones. There's no doubt about it. He got a good endorsement early on from the Manning family, and what the Manning family sees in quarterbacks, I got to go along with them, too.
It's amazing, the life you've had. I watched that HBO special, and I'm sure everybody else has, too. Your life has been a storybook. It really has, and you go through all these different people you've met, all these different walks of life, going through the movie stuff, going through the Namath girls and Mantle Men when you had employment agencies and Bachelor 3 and all this stuff. When you look back, who's the most interesting person you ever met?
Well, first of all, when you mentioned Mantle Men, Namath girls, I thought of George Lois. And he was an interesting man. He had an ad agency in New York, you see, and I've been, I'm fortunate to meet presidents, and oh boy, I couldn't dare answer you correctly without giving this a lot of thought.
It's been it really has been a remarkable life, hasn't it? I mean, think about it. I mean, who could have a more interesting life than the one you've led?
Well, I guess that there's a lot of people out there, that have accomplished far more and done more important things that I've done. But as I mentioned earlier, I've got a couple of daughters and 6 grandchildren, and we're all healthy. So at this point, and I think for any young people starting out, taking care of your health and having your family take care of the health, that you got to do that. And like you brought up, physical fitness, trying to keep active, paying respect to the instrument. Mike, when I was studying acting, one of the teachers that I had referred to our body and mind as an instrument, your instrument. And that evolved to my way of thinking of physical health, taking care of my instrument. I need to take care of the instrument, do the best I can, whether it's eating, exercise, whatever. Now, eating, we all can have desserts. You can eat some things and enjoy, but taking care of the instrument's important for all of us. And there are a lot of folks that are so busy they don't think about that.
No question.
And we're creatures of habit, man, and it's probably easier to establish a new habit than to break a bad habit. I know I had bad habits like smoking or drinking through the years, and I was able to break those, but to be able to establish a new habit and think of it that way, people can change for the better.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention we're talking with the legendary Joe Namath, the foundation and the work you've done with kids and charities and neurological research and all that stuff that you've done. You've done a great job with the foundation and all that stuff.
Well, I was lucky with the neurological research, certainly, because I know that I had many concussions, so I was lucky to get treatment here in Florida, and we actually saw the brain improve in health with the hyperbaric oxygen therapy. But I'd be remiss in not mentioning my loved ones, friends in Brooks Thomas and his wife and Joe Blaney when you mentioned the foundation, because once again, I look at this life being a team effort. And without those people, without Brooks going back 30 years and then Linda, without Joe helping, life is a team effort. You got to give to others and help others, and you should anyway, and you get back what you put out.
You have an interesting perspective that, not many people, and I don't know if young fans listening to this have any idea. I mean, you were like the Beatles. I mean, you were like a rock star. I mean, you were like Mick Jagger. You were that big. You lived through that kind of celebrity. Not a lot of people do. I mean, and you seem very normal now, but that had to be a crazy time in your life.
You know what? You're right. And when you mentioned the Beatles, Paul McCartney and his wife, had the honor of visiting with at football game, of course, one of the Super Bowls, and my daughter Jessica was with me. And whenever I introduced her to Paul and his wife, Jessica looked at him, and what a reaction. Just froze. Tears came to her eyes. It was just that. It was so nice to meet them. And, of course, they're two wonderful people. But meeting people in life, again, you treat them the way you want those others to treat your family, and you treat them with respect. And I've just, Jimmy Carter, my God, the kind of guy he was. His mother was a football fan. She told me, we could go on, Mike. And again, I'm honest to God thankful. And you got to keep on trying to improve.
You like where the league is now? You like where the NFL is now?
It's such great playing. Football is what a fast sport it is, and the players that make it to that level have been lucky enough not to get injured severely, anyway, but they work so darn hard. Even in high school and college, you see these guys working every day or 4 days, 5 days a week in the weight room, man, watching what they're eating. Sports, it's not easy. It's not tough. I mean, it's tough. It's not something you just fall into. And you make a goal, you dream of something, and you can make that dream come true. And keep trying. I'm just talking to people out there that might listen. If they've got a dream and their heart's set on something, just keep trying, man. Keep trying, and don't let anyone tell you can't do it if you are determined to do it.
Isn't it amazing? You really helped put the Super Bowl on the map. I mean, that game and the parity finally between the leagues, what your Jets accomplished, what the Chiefs accomplished the year after to make everyone realize it was real, and everything else. I mean, but also the growth of the league at that time. I mean, it was extraordinary how one game, and I know you grew up as a Johnny Unitas fan, and, the games he played in that changed the sport, like the great game against the Giants. There's a couple of games, and Eubank, I always said, coached in the two biggest games in the history of the sport. One with Johnny Unitas, one with you. Johnny Unitas was obviously on the other side in the other one. But those games changed football. I mean, and that Super Bowl, your life changed with that game. I mean, and your life was so extraordinary anyway, but your life really probably changed remarkably with that win.
Well, it did for a lot of folks, myself included, but the Kansas City Chiefs the following season winning that, and that enabled the AFL and the NFL to go in on equal ground.
And winning easy. And they won easy.
They won the first two championship games, and we and Kansas City won the next two. And then, we merged. But I got a picture hanging up in my exercise room, Mike, of Weeb Eubank standing in Shea Stadium, an empty Shea Stadium, with his top coat on and snow all around the ground. Weave standing there with his right arm raised with the number 1 up there, and with the left arm raised with his number 1 up there. He is the only coach to win the world championship in the 2 professional football leagues.
Great honor. It's a great honor. He doesn't get mentioned enough when they talk about the great coaches. He doesn't get mentioned enough.
Yeah, well, he's that kind of guy that he understands. He was, God, I never heard him say a curse word. I never saw him lose his cool. Well, he'd get a little flustered with me sometimes, but we learned to love Weave. Don Maynard would tell you that, well, you never had to negotiate with Weave, Joe. Weave was also the general manager, and he was closer than 9 is to 10 when it came to numbers, you see. So some of the guys had a tough time with Weave, but I thank God that he was one of my coaches.
Do you watch a lot of football? It seems like you do. You seem very much up on it. Do you watch it every week?
Yes, I watch the Crimson Tide as much as I can. I watch other colleges play football. I haven't been to the high school games recently, but I do watch the college game as well as the pro sports game. Unless I watch the Jets. I don't watch every pro football game that's on when they're on. I might watch flashes of it and all, but I watch the Jets religiously and the Alabama Crimson Tide.
Well, listen, I appreciate a couple of minutes. I'm glad to hear you're doing well. I see you on that commercial all the time. It's on every day. I see it everywhere. So I see it on CNBC. I see it on all the different channels. So we still see you on TV, every day, and you're looking good. So I appreciate a couple of minutes. Happy holidays to you and your family, and keep going well.
Well, thank you, Mike, and it's always a treat to visit with you, buddy. And go Jets!
Thank you, Joe.
Jets.
Thanks very much.
Jets.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to the Mike Francesa podcast on the Bet Rivers Network.